All right. Good morning. It is currently 9:34 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 19th of July 2025. How are you doing? Yes. Good morning. It is Saturday. Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. It's the weekend. I'm sure you will be getting some well deserved rest this weekend because I am also sure you've worked really hard all through the week. So, yes, you deserve a well rested weekend, okay? Go out, have a good time, relax with your family, you know, with your kids. Have a good time, all right? Have a good time. Happy Saturday, everybody. All right, this morning, first of all, I got to say, God is the greatest. Thank God for his grace. God is the greatest. Also, I got to say, the United States is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Yes, you heard me. The United States is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And with that being said, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, actually participated in signing a bill yesterday. And he calls it the Genius Act bill. All right. And he said the bill was named after him. Of course, you know how Trump does. His sense of humor is out of this world. Out of this world. Anyway, so he jokingly said the Genius Act bill. And of course, everybody's going bonkers talking about, whoa, now he's saying he's a genius. Well, I mean, geez, relax. It's not even that serious. It is not that serious. Well, like I was saying, he signed the Genius Act bill into law. And everybody's asking, what is the Genius Act bill? Well, it is a crypto investment in the United States where, of course, the president of the United States has always mentioned that he wants the United States. He actually vows to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. So that is most likely going to happen now with this Genius Act bill that he has signed into law yesterday. So let's see how that actually helps the United States and the people of the United States. Also, this is crypto week, so doing it on a crypto week is absolutely genius move because now cryptocurrencies all the way up from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Solana, any XRP, any um, cryptocurrency that you are invested in right now is absolutely all the way up, and that is for sure. So, um, and this is not me advising people to invest in cryptocurrency. It's just how it is. If you are invested in crypto right now, you see Bitcoin is at an all-time high. Ethereum is at an all-time high too. So uh, this bill is definitely going to help um, cryptocurrency for sure. So if you are interested in cryptocurrency, then yeah. All right. Shout out to Dana. That's the godmother of the channel. Shout out to Dana. God bless you for tuning in. Everybody, don't forget you are American before you are a Republican or a Democrat. Don't forget it is country first before being a Republican or being a Democrat. So, God bless the United States. You are currently tuned into the Genesis show. So, sit back, relax. It is Saturday. Kick your feet up and enjoy the show. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Keep going. We worked hard. We worked hard. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we worked hard. It's a very important act, the Genius Act. They named it after me, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you. This is a hell of an act. You know, I did something very unusual. I said, this has been something, it's been, a lot of people thought it was impossible, some of the things that have been done. And of course, the great big, I added the word great, the great big beautiful bill, that was something that nobody thought possible. They thought it would be in anywhere from 7 to maybe 3, I'll go the opposite direction, but 3 to 7 different bills. And we said, let's just put it in one, because this way there's something for everyone, and there really is. There's a lot of things for everyone. And when we get the word out how great that is for every single person in this country virtually, and all they have is a soundbite, death. You know what their soundbite is? Death. Aren't they nice? Death. They are the most incompetent people. They've lost their confidence. They've lost everything, if you think about it. But Jasmine Crockett is on her way. She's on her way. She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble. But I have to tell you, that was great, and this was great. And I am so tired of making phone calls at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting calls from our great speaker. Sir, we have 12 hard no's. I say, Mike, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We have 12 hard no's. The good news is I'd call up, hello, Jim, how are you? Sir, you have my vote. Boom. Sir, you have my vote. I really they just want a little love. Unfortunately, it's always the same. It's always the same 12 people. That's it. It's 5 senators and it's 12 congressmen. And I actually said to John Thune and I said to Mike, I said, listen, I want to have a party, but not to those people that I have to speak to endlessly every time. And they're wonderful because they always seem to come through, other than a couple. Rand Paul Jr. from the Congress and Rand Paul from, other than a few people. But I said, I want to have them over. We're going to have a party for everybody in Congress, everyone in Congress except 12. We're going to have, and Mike is, Tom, I'll tell you what, Tom is definitely coming. The whole group, where are those 12 people? They're the only people I don't see. We could do it today. We don't have to vote. And I would say of the 53 senators, 48, we're going to have 48 in here. You won't even have to come to that one. But these are the greatest people because they always vote yes, and we don't have to go crazy. You trust us, we trust you. And it's been a very special group of people. We really do. I mean, 96% phenomenal and 4% extremely difficult. Do you agree with that? But they get there, most of them, not all of them. Those are the ones we really don't like. But I want to thank you all for being here. This is really a big day. This afternoon, we take a giant step to cement American dominance of global finance and crypto technology as we sign the landmark Genius Act into law. So congratulations to everybody. This is a big deal. You've come a long way since the Biden administration, when they had no idea what you were all talking about, and half of you were under arrest for no reason whatsoever. True, for no reason. And we want to have it, not China. China wasn't actually happy. They were watching this. They like it. And we've got this. We've got AI. We've got a lot of great ones happening. And this is a very big thing. And I want to thank the bill's author, Senator Bill Hagerty, a very good friend of mine. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's a very handsome guy. Looks great. He's got the whole package. But, I got to know him. He was ambassador to Japan. And we had a little problem with Japan on trade. But he was my ambassador to Japan. And I went to Japan, and he is speaking fluently Japanese. I said, "Did you learn it as a child?" No, I just learned it over the last 4 or 5 months. I said, "You learned Japanese, maybe the single hardest language to learn. It's actually breathing rather than, it's breathing." I'm not going to imitate it because we'll end up with a big story, and I don't want that. But he spoke totally fluent Japanese. I said, "That's very impressive." And he was introducing me to Mr. Honda. I said, "Oh, are you in the car business?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "You're a very rich man." And then he said, "Mr. Toyota, right? Toyota." And I said, "What business are you in?" Let me guess. He said, "Cars." He was my interpreter. And I was so impressed. And I was getting ready to leave. He said, "Sir, I'd like to run for the United States Senate." I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Tennessee." I said, "Well, I love Tennessee, but do they know you there?" "No, but if you endorse me, I'll win," right? And I endorsed him, and he took a 48-point lead. And they didn't know who the hell he was. And he's turned out to be a great senator. And now they all know who you are. Yeah, so you're fantastic, and we thank you. And just the fact that you're doing this and you understand this is a complicated world, and you understand it, Bill. So you've been great. Thank you very much. We're also pleased to be joined by our great Vice President, J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you very much. Good job. And he's been up speaking late at night on the phone. I said, "J.D., how about you taking 3 or 4 of these people, please? Because 3 or 4 I cannot speak to. I just can't." And he'd take them, and he'd come through. Right, J.D.? Also, Speaker Mike Johnson. He is unbelievable. He's an unbelievable... I mean, if you go by what we're doing, if you keep at this pace, you can't keep it up for another 200 days. But I will tell you this, if you keep up this pace for another week, you go down as the greatest speaker in the House in history. So one more week. One more week. Who needs Tip O'Neill? Who needs Tip O'Neill? He's better looking than Tip O'Neill, too. But no, he's been going at a fervent pace. Would you say that's right? Your wife probably says, "You are crazy." You've been aging beautifully at front. He's an amazing speaker, a great leader, and everybody likes him and respects him. And that's why we're with a very small majority, like 3. We had a time when we were 1. Remember? We said we're 1 heart attack away from losing the House. Then we won a couple of seats and a couple of other. Now we have 7, maybe if we're lucky, 7. But we win with, nobody's ever done, I don't think anyone's ever done this before, to win with those small. We had a little help from Tom, too, right, and a lot of other people. I want to introduce also Secretary Howard Lutnick, who's been fantastic. You have done a great job, Howard. We've got trade deals coming out of our ears, right? We had so many trade deals. They're all calling so many, and I really mean this, too. It's like, how do you deal with so many? But, I always say when we send out the paper, that was a deal. They don't want the fake news doesn't want to hear that. When I send out the paper that you're paying 35 or 40% tariff, that's a deal. Then they'll call and see if they can make a little bit different kind of a deal, like opening up their country to trade. In some cases, they've never been opened. But we're doing well, and we have a couple of big ones to announce pretty soon, right? Could almost do it today. Maybe we'll say it. Maybe later on we'll do it. Senator Bernie Moreno, a great victory. Bernie had great victory. A great victory. That was one of the truly tough races. A lot of people weren't sure anybody could win that seat, and you won it in easy fashion, right? We won it together when you think of it. But you won it in easy fashion. You did a great job. Great guy. House Majority Whip. This is a great leader, Tom Emmer, a great politician and leader. Really good. And I like his wife even better. His wife is, she's the boss, but you are married to a fantastic woman, huh? And he knows that, and he likes hearing it, because some people don't, they say, "Sir, could you please stop saying that my wife is better than me, sir?" Those are guys that don't usually end up with a good marriage, He's got a great marriage. So thank you, Tom. You really are a fantastic leader and representative. and Representatives Troy Downing, French Hill. Where's French Hill? Where is French? You have been so great. Thank you, French. I spoke to him a little late. He was walking down the hall. I said, French. He said, I'm there, sir. You are great, great, great guy. Everyone respects you, French. You know that. Bill Heisinger. Bill, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good job. Dan Muser. I thought he was going to become the next governor of Pennsylvania, but he likes Congress better, I guess, huh? So, but I think you're terrific, and, you know, I would have always been behind you. That I can tell you. Tim Moore. Tim, thank you, Tim. John Rose. John? Hi, John, thanks. Good job. Brian Stile. Brian Stile. Still young? Still nice and young. That's good. G.T. Thompson. G.T. Thank you. Andy Barr, good friend of all of ours. Thank you, Andy. Monica de la Cruz. Monica, she's here someplace. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica. Mike Haradopoulos. Mike. Thank you, Mike. Look good. Mike Lawler, Mr. Salt. Well, it should guarantee your district. I mean, you worked hard for New York, right? And you're on television, I'm on television, so this should be good for a couple of points. But without you and your couple of friends from New York, that wouldn't have happened. That was not easy, right? Congratulations. Great job. Anna Paulina Luna. Anna, who is so great. I don't, even if she's here or not here, I want to tell you that she has been so great and worked so hard to make sure we got it approved. Ralph Norman. Ralph? Ralph? What happened to Ralph? Nick Begich. Nick, thank you, Nick. Good job. Good job. Good votes. I just saw a great poll on you, huh? Very good. Congratulations, Nick. Andy Ogles. Andy, who's a terrific friend. Beth Van Dyne. Beth, thank you, Beth. Great job. Thank you. Thank you very much for the great support. Roger Williams, a great baseball player, who also had to take a bullet, unfortunately, but he is a great guy. He was involved in that whole catastrophe, but he's fantastic and has been from day one, along with a lot of other people that I won't call out because I have no idea where the hell you are. I think I saw Jason here somewhere. Where's Jason? Oh, it's lucky I called him. Ooh, it's lucky. They didn't put your name because I invited you at the last moment, right? He was over there doing some business in the White House. But you've been incredible in your position. Nobody knows more about taxes and finance than you do, so we appreciate it, right? Is that true, Howard? It's true. Thanks, Jason. Great job. And you'll help out with that other matter. You make him so strong and powerful, right? Along with Deputy Secretary of Treasury, Michael Faulkender. Where's Michael? Good, Michael. How are you? Good. You'll help out over there, okay? And Ambassador Ken Howry. Ambassador? Thank you, Ken. Great job, Ken. I also want to recognize some of the countless industry leaders here today, including Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. You've done a good job, Brian. That's a big deal. Dave Ripley of Kraken. Dave. Thank you, Dave. Jeremy Allaire of Circle. This is a big day. Good job. Good job, Jeremy. Paolo Ardino of Tether. Paolo, thank you, Paolo. Ryan McInerney of Visa. That's a good company. Thank you. Chris Pavlovsky of Rumble. Chris, what happened to your location, Chris? You're always a front row guy. You're just being nice today, I think. Huh? How's Rumble doing? Good? Good. If Rumble's doing good, that means Truth is doing good. Truth. That's great. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Chris, very much. Vlad Tenev of Robinhood. Vlad, thank you, Vlad. Thank you, Vlad. Good. Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss. These are two smart, handsome guys. They got the whole package. They're of Gemini, but they have the whole pack. They're of a lot of things, actually, but Gemini's just the one for today, right? They've got they've got the look, they've got the genius, got plenty of cash, and it's great that you're on our side. You guys are great. I can never tell them apart, but their mother can. I asked, can your mother tell you apart? And the answer is yes, right? Easily, or is it tough for her? Easy, I figure. Good. You guys have been great. Thank you very much. Great to be with you. Let me say the entire crypto community, for years, you were mocked and dismissed and counted out. You were counted out as little as a year and a half ago. But this signing is a massive validation. And even before this signing, over the last year and a half, I think your stuff has gone up more than any stock, or just about more. A couple of stocks that were pretty good, I will say. But you have certainly, as an industry, gone up more than anybody. Nobody's gained the respect in such a short period of time. But this signing is a massive validation of your hard work and your pioneering spirit and your ability to never give up, because a lot of people would have given up 2-3 years ago. So I want to thank you for contributing to the incredible strength of America. This is going to make it stronger, and congratulations on this incredible achievement. You've made our dollar look really good and strong and powerful. It's good for the dollar, and it's good for the country. And that's why I backed you at an early stage, and I also did it for the votes, because you did come out and vote, I will tell you. And they changed tune, you know, Biden's team, they changed tune right in the middle of the campaign. All of a sudden, they loved you guys. They dropped all charges. They did have, I got you guys out of so much trouble. And you know what? I don't think anybody voted for them, right? Because you remember, they treated you very unfairly, actually. So it's a great honor that we were involved. And it was a tremendous amount of support that we got at the polls. We won, think of it, we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won the popular vote. We won the districts by 2,750. Think of that, to 505. Different districts too, by the way. Every once in a while that number can change, but it doesn't change by much. The map was almost totally red, and you guys were with us right from the beginning. Exactly 1 year ago this month, many of you were with me in Nashville, Tennessee. Do you remember that day, right? That was a big day, Nashville, Tennessee, when I became the first presidential candidate ever to address the Bitcoin conference. And at this time, and at that time, crypto builders and founders were under relentless assault by the Biden administration, which was trying to crush your industry and crush you as people and go after your families. And they were a vicious group of people. You know, people don't realize it. They were vicious, incompetent, but vicious. Well, Joe was an incompetent guy, but he was always known as a vicious guy. I guess if you're going to be in that, you're probably off. If they're incompetent is better, right? Because you don't want to have a vicious guy that's competent. If you did, I wouldn't be standing here today, right? But I pledged that we would bring back American liberty and leadership and make the United States the crypto capital of the world, and that's what we've done. And under the Trump administration, this is only going further. You're going to do really well. I mean, I'm so proud of what you've done in the last couple of years. And very important, on day one, I remember I did this and I said this and I mentioned this name, and I got the greatest applause of the whole campaign. We fired Joe Biden's SEC chair, Gary Gensler. We fired him. But I remember I was making a speech, and it was just a line in a speech. And I said, and I will fire Gary Gensler. The place exploded. I finished like one, and I said, what the hell did that guy do? There was a lot of hatred there, I'll tell you. And it turned out, as I got familiar with everything, it turned out you were absolutely right. In his place, I appointed a visionary chairman who wants America to build the future and not block the future. He's going to be unbelievable. He'll go down as one of the greats. And Paul Atkins, where are you, Paul Atkins? And you know, Paul, the crypto guys, they said, everybody said, not only crypto, every industry, they all wanted Paul for the position. And he's a tough cookie, too. But they actually said, we don't care. We just think he's fair. All they wanted was fairness. And they have somebody that you're really a champion of the street and you're a champion of the country. You're going to do a fantastic job. I saw you interviewed the other night. I watched it about 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a little thing called C-SPAN, which I don't know how many people were watching. Don't worry, you were on primetime too, but they happened to have a little rerun. I don't want to embarrass you. But a fantastic job, really. You are absolutely so perfect for the job. Congratulations, Paul. And Paul is here today among the commissioners, various commissioners, including Hester Pierce and Mark Yoida. Hester and Mark Yoida. Thank you, Hester. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mark, wherever you may be. Is Mark here? Oh, stand up, Mark. I didn't. Good. Thank you. Good job. Good. I'm glad I gave you a second crack you didn't hear because of the thunderous applause for Hester. But thank you. I heard tremendous things about both of you. Thank you very much. My first week in office, I also established the first ever presidential working group on digital assets, and we have an executive director. Where's Bo Hines? Bo Hines. Right, Bo. And Bo is a great football player, right? Bo is a great football player, one of the better players in college football. So I know you from that also. See, who would think that I know that? I know a lot of things, Bo. But he was a champion player. I stopped the weaponization of government against crypto and Bitcoin, and we ended the lawless operation Choke Point 2.0. That was a bad operation. And I kept my promises to the community and granted a full presidential pardon to Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht. And you have no idea how important that name became. It was like a symbol, and his mother was unbelievable. His mother was an unbelievable woman, but it was so important to a certain group of people. And in the truly momentous act last March, I signed an executive order establishing the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, as well as the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. And that's all signed up. And with today's signing, we're pushing even further into the exciting new frontier. Just as I promised last year, the Genius Act creates a clear and simple regulatory framework to establish and unleash the immense promise of dollar-backed stable coins. This could be perhaps the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the internet itself. A lot of people are saying that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yes? If you say yes, I'm saying yes. I think it's great that you're involved, I will tell you. Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after I really met you for the first time? The Genius Act provides banks, businesses, and financial institutions a framework for issuing crypto assets backed one-for-one with real U.S. dollars, treasury bills, and other cash equivalents. It's really strengthening the dollar and giving the dollar great prominence. And, you know, you have this little group called BRICS. It's fading out fast. But BRICS is, they wanted to try and take over the dollar, the dominance of the dollar, and the standard of the dollar. And I said, anybody that's in the BRICS consortium of nations, we're going to tariff you 10%. And they had a meeting the following day, and almost nobody showed up. They said, leave me alone. We didn't want to. They didn't want to be tariffed, did they, Howard? Huh? So it's amazing. No, we're not going to let the dollar slide. If we have a smart president, you're never going to let the dollar slide. If you have a dummy, that could happen. Like the last one, he would. If you ever asked him about the dollar sliding, he would have no idea. But we can't let that ever happen again. Consumers, vendors, and people all over the world will then be able to use those stable coins for ultra-low-cost transactions that are cleared and settled in a matter of seconds rather than weeks and months. And it's really an amazing thing. And with the privacy, flexibility, and decentralization of cash, this revolution has the potential to supercharge American economic growth and empower billions of people to save and transfer in U.S. dollars. It's really all backed by the dollars. It's really a great thing. And a lot of, we had a lot of Democrat support. I have to tell you that. I was shocked. Anytime you get one but we had a tremendous amount of Democrat support, which we appreciate, and which just shows you that you're doing the right thing. This will increase demand for U.S. Treasuries, lower interest rates, and secure the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency for generations to come. The reserve currency is so important. If we lost that, that would be like losing a world war. We can never let anyone play games with us, and that's why when I heard about this group from BRICS, 6 countries basically, I hit them very, very hard. And if they ever really form in a meaningful way, it will end very quickly, I will tell you, for them. They won't be gone very long. I don't think they'll even do it. They're virtually afraid to meet. I also remain fully committed to my pledge never to allow the creation of a central bank digital currency in America. It won't happen. My first. Thank you. And the other night, I will say, with some of the congressmen and women, they wanted that so badly. That was so important to them. I was impressed that they knew what the hell it was, to be honest with you. Please, sir, please, the central bank digital currency. Well, you have to make sure, sir. And I'm saying, what do you know about that? It's amazing the knowledge that people have gained all of a sudden. We had a lot of problems with some of them. I said, we've already got it from the Fed, right, from Commerce, and from an executive order. You don't need it a fourth time. Sir, we have to get it. It's amazing. But they knew their subject, though, didn't they, huh? And we helped them out. My first week in office, I signed an executive order to ban the creation of a CBDC in the United States, and very soon I look forward to signing legislation that will codify and ban make it a permanent law, put it in permanence. I'm also committed to signing landmark crypto market structure legislation this year to grow the industry. We're going to be growing it even more than people ever thought. It's a really hot industry. And for a little while, 2 nights ago, we were a little concerned because we were a little short on votes. Like, I would say maybe we were about 9 short. 9 short at 3 in the morning. We were about 4 short at 3:30 in the morning. And we were in good shape at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? But the people, and few people, have fought harder for the bill than we're signing than some of the people here today. You have been unbelievable. It's our White House AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, who has done such a great job. And he has a show now. I've become a showman, but a couple of years ago, right? It's probably 2 years ago now in San Francisco, and I did his show. And I heard he's a very smart guy, and we had a great show. You've kept it going a lot longer, and is that still your highest rated ever show? Oh, he knows what to say. He knows what. He had a rating that he had millions and millions of people. He said, what's going on? But we had a great show. And I said, that guy's really smart. I said, if I get elected, I was running at that time, if I get elected, we're going to bring him into government in some ways. He's worth a fortune. He's made a lot of money. He's a very rich billionaire. But this is more important, isn't it? This is, me too, it's like, doesn't matter. This is much, I know Howard and I talk about it all the time. Howard could go back to his wonderful brokerage firm, hire 1 or 2 people, and it's not the same as what you're doing, right? We're doing the biggest deals in the world. Actually, the deal we're doing now in tariffs is the biggest, when you add it up, the biggest deal ever made in history. It could be 1,000 IBMs. I mean, if you think of it, it's the biggest deal ever done. So it's hard to go back to a brokerage firm and, make $79,000 commission on the sale of a stock, right? It's true. But I want to ask David. So David's been fantastic. He's done an incredible job. And I'd like to ask David to come up, say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you, President Trump. It's a great honor to be here, and it's true that I'd never expected to work in government at all, and then everything changed after President Trump came on my podcast, and I accepted this job as crypto czar because I thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work for a president who really wants to get things done for the American people, and if anything, that's been an understatement. The first 6 months of this administration have been more successful than any administration in American history. What's been done? It's just been incredible. President Trump has worked at tech speed. We're used to working fast in Silicon Valley, but even this is fast for us in Silicon Valley, the speed at which you move, President Trump. It's really incredible. And now today, you have another historic legislative achievement that is a monumental step to fulfilling your promise to making the United States the crypto capital of the world. This Genius Act will unlock American dominance in the crypto industry by creating clear rules of the road. It will update archaic payment rails with a revolutionary new payment system, and it will extend U.S. dollar dominance, like you said, globally, by creating a digital dollar that people all over the world can use. And for every digital dollar in a crypto wallet, there'll be a traditional dollar in a U.S. bank account, which will create trillions of dollars of demand for U.S. Treasuries. So that is the power of this bill, is U.S. dollar dominance. This is a huge promise made and promise kept by President Trump. And there's just a few other people I'd like to thank. First, my family for being here. Thank you. And Bo Hines, who President Trump mentions, the director of our crypto council, he really did the heavy lifting here. So Bo, I just want to thank you again. And my chief of staff, Tracy Johnson, as well, who also does the heavy lifting. And Bill Haggerty and French Hill and all the congressmen and senators who have already been mentioned by President Trump, so I'll save the time, but it's really been an honor to work with all of you. This was really a team effort, but most of all, I want to thank President Trump for accomplishing what nobody thought was possible, and it's true that just earlier this week, the media was reporting that this bill was dead. This bill was dead, and then the media didn't know one thing, that we had a secret weapon. We have a deal maker in chief. And thanks to President Trump, he stepped in and saved this bill. And it's because of your vision, your leadership, your determination, your skill that we're all here today. So thank you very much, President Trump. Thank you.
Is that Laura? Please come. Just come here. This is our superstar. She was the head of the Republican Party, and nobody complained about anything. We went on to great. This is Laura Trump, married to a young gentleman named Eric. They have beautiful 2 children, but she has been so good. She stepped into that position like it was nothing that we won, and she said, Dad, I'd like to go home right now to my beautiful husband and my son and daughter, Red, but you did a fantastic job, and you worked with a great gentleman, too. He's doing a fantastic job. But I just want to thank you. I just saw you standing back there. I wanted to bring her in. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you. So under the Trump administration, I mean, I just got back from Saudi Arabia, and we went to Qatar. We went to a number of countries, and I will tell you the level of respect that this country has now is incredible. The UAE, I tell you what, we had a time there, but every leader said the same thing. They said 1 year ago, your country was dead. And they'd say it that way. It was like, I didn't know whether I was supposed to be happy or insulted, but the truth is we were in deep trouble. But they said 1 year ago, your country was dead, and today you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And it's true. We have the hottest country in the world. We had a country, we were a laughingstock with the borders, people pouring in. Can you imagine last month, in the month of June, actually, 0. Now, I don't even believe that, 0, because you have hundreds of thousands pouring in, and then all of a sudden it's 0. But they have it down as 0. And very liberal people take that particular toll. It's a liberal group, so they're not giving us any favors. It's 0 people coming through our border. Can you imagine that? From literally hundreds of thousands and millions pouring in from all over the world. They came from They came from all over the world. They came from prisons, jails. They came from mental institutions, gang members. There were gangs. They came from all over the place, from every country. They came from the Congo in Africa, a lot from the Congo. They came from South America. A lot of came from Venezuela. They emptied their jails into our country. Can you imagine? They allowed that, emptied their jails into our country, and they let them walk right into our country like perfect. 11,888 committed murder. 50% committed more than one person. They murdered more than one person. 50% of 11,888. And we had murderers, and we're getting them out, and Tom Homan and Christie are doing a great job. That Tom Homan, I'll tell you, is he central casting or what? And he takes abuse, but they just keep fighting, and they're winning, and we're winning in the courts, and we're winning everywhere. But we've got the hottest country in the world, and you're a big part of it. So the golden age of America is upon us, and with today's signing, the future of crypto and the crypto industry, the U.S. dollar working together, because they really are hand in hand, is going to be stronger and bigger and better than ever before. And I just want to thank everybody, some tremendous people in this room. And maybe when I sign, I'll ask some of our great senators and congressmen to come on up. Some of the top crypto guys, please come on up, because you guys worked very hard at this. And we'll sign this, and we'll get on to the next battle, and we'll win. But we're winning all over the world right now. It's not even close, not even close, and we're going to keep it going. Thank you, everybody, very much. Thank you.
The legendary, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. The Genius Act bill. As you can hear, he said it was named after him. The Genius Act bill, ladies and gentlemen.
You got it? This is not an auto pen, by the way.
Oh,
Which is a
man.
big scandal. If that were a Republican, it would really be a big scandal. But it is one of the great scandals of our time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Signed. Yes, sir. It is signed. Shout out to the 45th, the 47th Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump. All right. For the liberals, we're going to go to CNN real fast concerning the Epstein situation.
Report
Here
on
we
the
go.
relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The president is now asking the DOJ to release any pertinent grand jury testimony from this case. Joining us now is former U.S. District Court Judge Shira Scheindlin. Judge, great night to have you. Thank you very much for being here. We were just discussing, what would a judge do? So what do you think? I mean, how hard is it to release grand jury testimony?
Well, there's a high bar, but it's not hard in the sense that the judge looks at it. The judge decides whether it's pertinent. But the question I had is listening to you, pertinent to what? What are we talking about here? Pertinent to what is the big question. I think that's what Judge Berman, Richard Berman, who was my colleague for many years, that's what he's going to be thinking. Now, what is it pertinent to? Look, it seems to me, and I didn't hear all of this earlier conversation, but this is a self-made problem. The Republicans campaigned on releasing it all because it was a big conspiracy, and they were going to let it come out so the public would know. And all of a sudden, when it's time to come out, after the Attorney General said it's on my desk, suddenly there's nothing there to release. So there's certainly a public interest on one side, but there's a privacy interest on the other. There are witnesses, there are victims. That could be redacted, so you could release some statements and redact others, which means black them out. For people who didn't know what redact means, you can take things out and release it in that form. So if I were a speculating person, I think something will get released of the grand jury minutes. Now, I think, as I heard on the last segment, most of the material is not grand jury material. So there's still a decision that somebody's making to release or not release. And that's not up to the judge.
Can I ask a question of the judge? In a case like this, does the court have to give an opportunity for people who may be mentioned in that transcript to come and object to this?
No, I think the judge would consider that privacy interest and would probably redact. Look, the person at the center of it is dead.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that. This is in a way such old news, but it's self-made harm. It's self-inflicted.
What marks pertinence? They said that's the key question.
I said
what
that.
do you weigh there?
No, I don't know, because I'm not quite sure of the answer of pertinent to what.
Public interest.
there-
You
there-
raised the
yeah,
phrase
yeah,
public
And
interest.
there is also Ghislaine
Exactly.
Maxwell, who is
That's
alive.
true.
She's not
That's
dead.
true.
And she is in prison because of her role in
Well,
the
she
Sure.
has a case pending before
The Supreme Court. Well,
so could she
had-
object to it, saying it could hurt my case?
She could, but they haven't taken her case. I think it's a cert petition. I don't know that she's agreed yet to hear this appeal. It would be unlikely, frankly, that they would take it. What's the legal issue that's of interest to the court? So,
And Judge, you mentioned that there are people that could, maybe this is not released because the people still have to be protected. But what about the President of the United States? Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Yes, the person who is at the center of this case. But if it involves the President of the United States, the sitting president, how does that impact what's released?
if there's something in the grand jury testimony that might in some way impact him, that's something that the judge would have to consider in both directions. In other words, does the public have a right to know what his involvement was? I mean, we seem to know an awful lot about it already, right? We've heard, we've seen his picture every night as a young man with Jeffrey Epstein. We now hear his letters, his birthday cards, or all the rest of it. So we know a lot about their relationship.
With us now, CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. The president tells the Attorney General Pam Bondi to ask a court for the release of pertinent grand jury testimony. Why is the word pertinent important here, Ellie?
Well, pertinent's doing an awful lot of work there, John. First of all, just grand jury testimony itself is only going to be a fairly small fraction of the entire file. In addition to that, we now have this word pertinent. And so that begs the question, pertinent to what? And pertinent as determined by who? So it gives the Attorney General, in some respect, wiggle room, but it also puts her in a very difficult position where apparently she's going to have to A, decide what's pertinent, and then B, you have to go in front of a federal judge and get permission to release grand jury materials. So there's a lot of hurdles still in place here.
What is the difference between calling for the release of pertinent grand jury material and calling for the release of all investigatory information in the Jeffrey Epstein case, which is what some Republicans and the president's own supporters have long been calling for?
So there's a massive difference there, John. So if you think of the entire file here, and by the way, we know from last week's FBI memo that this is a huge file, 300 gigabytes of information. That's millions and millions of pages of documents. You can sort of separate it into two perceptual categories. There's grand jury materials. Those are presumptively confidential. By law, you cannot turn them over to the public as a prosecutor unless you get a judge's permission first. But then there's all the rest of it. That's something that the president, the attorney general, can decide on their own without going through a judge first and say, I'm going to release this. And so what the president has done here is said, I only want to focus on the narrow category, the grand jury stuff, that you first have to go to a judge for. As to all that other stuff, the majority of the file, that is entirely up to the AG and the president. If they want to release that today, they can do that.
Okay, wow. I want to make that even more clear. What the president has now publicly called for is for the attorney general to push for the release of stuff that they can't control the release of. A court can. What he's not calling for is the release of information that he and the attorney general can control?
Exactly. So when you think of a file, you have your grand jury materials. Actually, you typically store your grand jury materials in a physically different colored folder because you need to set that aside because that's the confidential stuff. So all the stuff that's in a red or yellow folder, all the grand jury materials that has to go through a judge, that's what Donald Trump is saying, I want you to ask a judge to release. But then the bulk of the file is going to be everything else, everything that is not grand jury testimony. All of that is within Donald Trump, is within Pam Bondi's discretion to release. Now, of course, they'd have to make all sorts of determinations about it. They'd have to redact out to protect victims and witnesses and minors. And by the way, ordinary DOJ procedure is you would never release any of this. This is a closed case investigative file. Try to serve a Freedom of Information Act request on DOJ for any such file and watch how quickly they reject it in the ordinary course. So Trump and Bondi are already painting way outside the lines here. But yes, John, the specific portion that Donald Trump has said, I want you to try to release, that also happens to be the exact portion that a judge has to sign off on first.
And this is something that judges very rarely release. It's something that you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get out there. Ellie Honig, great explanation. Thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Let's take a closer look now at the letter that's in the spotlight. Here is the Wall Street Journal reporting, and it is very, very graphic. The article describes the letter this way, and I'm quoting now from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, it contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squarely Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. The letter concludes, and again I'm quoting from the Wall Street Journal, happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret, close quote. Let's go live right now to CNN's chief legal affairs correspondent, Paula Reed. Paula, the president says he will sue the Wall Street Journal and its owner, Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul that Trump has seen as both an ally and at times a foe. How difficult of a case would this be for the Trump lawyers?
Well, it'll be interesting to see, Wolf, if he actually follows through with this lawsuit or if he's just blowing off steam. But we know it is much harder to prove a case in court than it is to, these days, extract settlements from news organizations that have whatever reason for wanting to just resolve a situation. We saw that most recently, of course, with my former employer, CBS News. They faced a lawsuit from Trump that was widely discredited and thought to be frivolous, but they still settled it because they had their own reasons for wanting to make that go away. And that is something, especially because Trump has had success with multiple media outlets extracting settlements that might embolden him to file a lawsuit here, even if he's unlikely to win. Now, look, you, me, Pamela, Elena, we have all worked at the White House. We know what it's like when they want to bury a story, the kind of pressure that you face. So the Wall Street Journal deserves credit for following through with its reporting that it's clearly confident in, even in the face of these threats and that pressure.
But he said it was not true. So why would you publish fake news? He said it wasn't true.
Blockbuster story that has heads here in Washington spinning. The Wall Street Journal reported on a collection of birthday letters gifted to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003, 3 years before he was charged with any crimes. One of those letters, the Journal says, it includes what appears to be Donald Trump's signature, and it's a cryptically written letter, a crude drawing of a nude woman done with a heavy marker. The president quickly denied it was him and says he'll sue the Rupert Murdoch-owned paper. But the politics here are complicated. Yes, it looks bad for the president, but it also may unite the movement that has been fractured over the Epstein saga. Even those critical of President Trump's handling of the Epstein files are rallying against their common enemy, the media.
Quite frankly, the Murdochs concocted something last night and thought it'd be a kill shot on President Trump. And lo and behold, it's the exact opposite, because President Trump is now on offense. President Trump is best when it's attack, attack, attack. This is the deep state. This is the ruling class in America. They're trying to use it to destroy President Trump.
The president and I talked about that ridiculous allegation this morning. He said it's patently absurd. The president is the most maligned and attacked political figure in the history of American politics. There's no question about it. But he's also the most resilient. Did you see the language of this bogus supposed communication or card or something I supposedly sent to Epstein? He said, I don't talk like that. I don't think like that. They're literally making things up.
I'm joined by a terrific group of reporters here at the table. CNN's Lauren Fox, CNN's Phil Mattingly, Jasmine Wright of Notice, and Nia Malika Henderson of CNN and of Bloomberg. We made it to Friday, one and all. Congratulations. Who would have thought? Jasmine, you cover the White House full time. What are you hearing from your sources about the implications of what we have seen in the last 12 hours?
Yeah, Well, Donald Trump is furious. That cannot be downplayed. That cannot be understated. He's going to speak in just a few hours. Everyone is waiting to see what he says when he's signing at a bill signing later on today. But the implications, I think, are twofold. One, the White House has been trying for days to put this behind them, this whole Epstein thing, trying to get the MAGA movement to move on. I've talked to numerous White House officials who basically say whatever is going to happen is going to happen. We're not going to change. Yesterday, we heard the press secretary say that Donald Trump did not believe that he needs to recommend a special prosecutor for this case. And now you have those same MAGA allies who were really enraged with the White House, maybe not so much the president, but certainly how the administration was handling it, basically defending the president all of a sudden. And they're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Yes, they're back on Donald Trump's side because they can defend the president against the media, but they're also now getting what they believed to be is more access potentially to documents now that he's asked Pam Bondi to, basically request the grand jury release more documents. Of course, who knows if that actually happens, but they're kind of in a good position right now, which they have not been for days.
And Phil, let me just go back a little bit and read some of what is in that, what the Wall Street Journal says is that letter, that birthday letter. What it allegedly said. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Now, again, I just want to be clear. This is an imagined conversation, allegedly written in a birthday message by Donald Trump between the two of them.
Allegedly.
Now let me just read to you the president's denial. The Wall Street Journal printed a fake letter, supposedly to Epstein. These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. I told Rupert Murdoch it was a scam, that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm going to sue his ass off. And that of his third-rate newspaper, as he likes to sign these days. Thank you for your attention to this matter, exclamation point, DJT. Phil?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this that I don't think we have the time to totally unpack. I think that it is important, though, to try and provide a window into how this actually works from the reporting side of things, because and I think you hear this from Steve Bannon, this is a Murdoch's concocted conspiracy to push through. That's not really at all how any of this works. And I completely agree with Jazz that this is a moment where the base, which has been fractured on some level, maybe not to the degree that people want to try and say it's going to be, but has certainly had some difficulties in a way that we haven't seen Trump deal with over the course of the last decade, has united behind attacking a common enemy. The bylines on this are important. One of the bylines is the same reporter who broke all of the catch and kill stories that, as we learned during the civil trial in New York last year, were all 100% accurate. The Journal was facing an immense amount of pressure from the White House, from the president himself, from his team leading up to this. They have a lot of lawyers. You're not printing this if you don't feel like you're in a very solid place on this. That process is not understood. This isn't something that they just pop out to pop out. This is something that they wouldn't have put out, especially given the current environment when it comes to journalism and legal issues, if they didn't feel confident in it. We don't have it. I don't know what it actually says or means. I do think it probably shows that we should just release everything. Right? Just release everything. This would probably be in it. But I think the president's response and his base's response is both predictable and probably puts him on the best footing that he's been in on this issue in the better part of 2 weeks.
And you heard Speaker Johnson, totally dismissing it. I do have to say that, and I want to talk a little bit more about how the Democrats are handling this in a minute, but Gavin Newsom, who has really enjoyed his role as Donald Trump's foil recently, he tweeted, "I never wrote a picture in my life," and that was it was kind of a retweet. Underneath it is an image from the Washington Post article back in 2019, and it was a sketch that Donald Trump did himself of the Manhattan skyline. Very different kind of sketch than what is allegedly the sketch that he drew, that he gave to Jeffrey Epstein, which is R-rated.
Yeah, Democrats obviously have really seized on this issue because they did view it as a way that the MAGA movement was fracturing. And What extent that movement was going to continue to fracture over this issue, I think, remains to be unseen. But obviously, Democrats feel like they can take the high ground here. There's no cost to them to basically argue over and over again, release everything, get it out there. Let's see if Donald Trump is afraid of something here, or if this is just really about the fact that he wants to move on for some reason. Meanwhile, it's hard because on Capitol Hill, you have some Republicans who are pushing this pretty hard as well. I mean, there are 2 moving resolutions right now that deal with this issue. One of them from Thomas Massie, that likely, if every Democrat signed on, may get a vote on the House floor. Then there was this last-minute agreement last night where GOP leadership basically had to bow to some conservatives who were happy to vote for a spending cuts bill, but weren't going to do it until they got assurances that there was going to be more transparency over the Epstein issue. Now, the resolution is non-binding, which means that there's no action forced for the Justice Department here, even if it moved along the legislative process. Also, Speaker Johnson has not promised when he would put that on the floor or if he's going to put that on the floor, but that just underscores here, members are hearing from their base. Like when you talk to members on Capitol Hill, they say that people are lighting up their phones about this.
And there is an alliance, an uncomfortable one, with Democrats who are, as we have been talking about this week, taking a very different tack on this than they have in the past. They're jumping in. They're not sort of abiding by the old playbook of don't bother your enemies when they're going after each other. You wrote, Nia, the following. For Democrats, this decision is not without risks, as Republicans could turn it into a witch hunt pushed by Democrats out to get Trump, even though the conspiracy theory has its roots in MAGA world. Talk about that, but also about the fact that this week we have seen Donald Trump try so many tactics to try to get rid of this and calm the base down, including pretending that this is a Democratic conspiracy or layering that on top of the original conspiracy. And now it looks like they are joining.
It's finally working,
against the media.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they're able to, at least today, suggest that this was some sort of media plot. It's the Democrats, which is good footing for them. He tried to do that in a couple of tweets and say this was Obama, it was Comey, it was name your Democrats' fault, and don't they always want to come at me? That didn't really work, and then he turned to saying that his supporters, that they were idiots and losers and suckers for actually believing this conspiracy theory that was pushed by Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. I think going forward, I think the problem that Donald Trump still has is that what will please the base is Epstein files that indict Democrats, right? That is the theory, that somehow that there is this Democratic cabal that is involved in sex trafficking of children, and that there are Democrats on high who are being blackmailed and sort of participating in this sex trafficking. That is a lie. It is not true, but it is what the MAGA base has been believing, has been told, really, by people who are now in Donald Trump's administration. So short of that, it's not clear what they would like to see or would be pleased by.
All right, thank you. Next one.
The network
Late night show has been canceled. Here we go.
And yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of the Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away.
That was nearly 24 hours ago, and we should note that the Late Show is being canceled after 30 years. So the question is still out there without real answers. Was it really all about money, as the company says, or could presidential politics, particularly President Trump's politics, have played a role here? Now, President Trump himself posted that he, quote, absolutely loves that show, hosted by Stephen Colbert, loves that it was canceled, I should say, while also hitting the show for its ratings. Ratings which have, we should note, they're pretty high. I think the highest of any of the late night hosts. And it all comes 2 weeks after CBS's parent company, Paramount, agreed to pay President Trump $16 million to settle a 60 Minutes lawsuit amid a merger. Colbert criticized that just 2 days before he was informed about his cancellation.
Now, I believe this kind of complicated financial settlement with a sitting government official has a technical name in legal circles. It's big fat bribe. Because this all comes as Paramount's owners are trying to get the Trump administration to approve the sale of our network to a new owner, Skydance.
Now, CBS, again, says the decision was purely financial. And for years, there has been a warning, lots of warning signs about late night's decline. Ratings, generally speaking, have begun to shrink as the way that people consume television has changed a lot. Ad revenue has declined 50% over the last 6 years. Brian Stelter joins our panel, and I'm going to start with you, Brian. What more are you learning? I know you've been talking to people inside CBS and in and around CBS all day.
And even on background, even when you grant these sources anonymity to speak more candidly, they insist this really was financial. At least the financials are a pretext. There is also, though, a question about whether the future owners of CBS maybe wanted Colbert out of the picture. Now, one of the arguments I've heard today, Deanna, is, hey, if this was politically motivated, we wouldn't be leaving Colbert on the air for 10 more months. And that's an interesting point. You know, Colbert's contract does not end until May. The Late Show will not end until next May. So Colbert will have 10 more months to roast President Trump and members of the Trump administration. That said, however, this does, I think today, as people process this, you can sense there's a little bit of a chilling effect or concern about a chilling effect. The Writers Guild of America, which represents writers who work on the show, they are out with a pretty bold statement this afternoon calling on the New York State Attorney General to investigate the matter. Here's a part of the statement. Quote, given Paramount's recent capitulation to President Trump in the CBS News lawsuit, the Writers Guild has significant concerns that the Late Show's cancellation is a bribe, sacrificing free speech to curry favor with the Trump administration as the company looks for merger approval. I had a source close to Colbert say to me today that this feels like a situation where Colbert and The Late Show are a casualty of that pending merger. And there's a broader concern at play here that I think folks all around the world can relate to. A country where you can't lampoon a sitting president is not a free country. A country where you can't publish editorial cartoons or have late night monologues or have satires about the president is not a democratic country. Of course, we're not there. We're not there at all right now. There are lots and lots of figures who are famous for mocking and deriding President Trump. But the idea that Colbert might be taken off the air, that his voice might be silenced, it certainly is creating a little bit of a chill in the air today, Dana.
Yeah. All right, Brian, thank you. Don't go far. Ron Brownstein, you spend most of your time in Los Angeles. You certainly have a sense of the way that, frankly, there is a collision coming, and we've seen it in several examples of big media companies. We're talking about Paramount right now. We saw Meta settle, Disney, ABC, and even Twitter and X. Well, X settled, but it was because of allegations when it was Twitter.
Whatever else you can say about Donald Trump, he is a keen student of human weakness. He takes the measure of institutions, and he is watching big institutions buckle to his determination to transform the federal government, every asset it has, into a mechanism for rewarding his friends and punishing his enemies. It's what I was saying before. This is just another manifestation of it. That tweet today, that dancing on the grave tweet, he feels utterly unbound. He does not feel there is an effective pushback coming from any direction, from Congress, the courts, Democrats. Some institutions have fought him. Many more, whether it's universities or law firms or these big media organizations, have conceded to him. And I think he feels that he can be unimaginably overt in doing things. I had a conversation with John Dean a few months ago. He was talking about how Nixon, the enemies list, was a deeply held secret. They felt that if it got out that they were trying to punish their enemies, it would be devastating and he would be embarrassed by it. That tweet today, to me, again, like the tweet about his supporters that I talked about earlier, is so indicative of a mindset that there are no boundaries on me. Yeah. And institutions, too many of them, rather than collecting and trying to resist this together, are trying to cut their own deal, and that simply does not work.
Mo? I don't disagree with any of that. Look, Paramount says this has nothing to do, that this is purely a financial decision, has nothing to do with politics. Those two things are clearly not mutually exclusive. And the fact that they see how he has targeted big media companies. I mean, in his first term, he was going after NBC, threatening to pull their license, which he doesn't have the ability to do, but threatening to pull their license and take NBC off the air. Paramount has a huge dog in this, right? They are trying to get this incredibly lucrative merger done. They can either buckle to him and try to grease those wheels a little bit, or they can stand up against him and know that he could, go after them.
Or it could be he's not funny. Colbert, having disdain for the American president and his supporters, is not a profit-making venture, which is proven so, and you get canceled like every other show when you hit the ratings. I think this is an example for
But they're
a lot
not
of
just canceling him; they're canceling the show. They're not replacing him.
Yeah, well, late night is changing. That's a different thing. You've seen the revenue go down. But at the end of the day, having disdain, if you're an entertainer and you have disdain for half the country, you're not going to have an economic successful model.
So
and
that's
especially
the prime time lineup over at Fox News, right? Gutfield over there, who has disdain for the other half of the country, and there's not that same kind of going after him, right?
We'll see. But he's literally for 4 years had disdain for the American people, and he's being rewarded by them not tuning in. This is what happens when you behave.
We got to sneak in a break.
What questions do you have about this? The timing, the motivation, as CBS is saying, this was purely a business decision.
Yes, as you noted, the timing of it is suspicious. Also, what we've seen in other late night shows is at least some attempt to figure out a cheaper way to do the show. No one is disputing that viewership is down for late night TV shows across the board, that they're making less money or losing money after years of declining ratings. But to announce the cancellation of the top-rated late night show without a sense that they made any effort to try and streamline it. We've seen other shows like Late Night with Seth Meyers, for example, let go of their live band in an effort to reduce costs, or streamline staff as an effort to reduce costs, or perhaps Colbert himself could have taken a pay cut. But it doesn't seem that any of that was considered. And we're also, of course, in the backdrop, hearing about this effort by Paramount to be sold to Skydance Media. They need federal approval for that. And of course, there's always a concern that they're trying to curry favor with the Trump administration, which does not like the way Colbert has been a strident and consistent critic of Donald Trump and his administration versus his first administration and now his second.
President Trump has filed a $20 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and conservative media giant Rupert Murdoch. The president now accusing the newspaper of libel after it published a story about a birthday letter Trump allegedly wrote to Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003. Trump denies ever writing the letter. But a spokesperson for the Wall Street Journal's parent company, Dow Jones, released a statement saying, "We have full confidence in the rigor and accuracy of our reporting and will vigorously defend against any lawsuit." Joining us now is CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. Brian, thank you so much for getting up early after a long day of reporting yesterday. Just break it down for us. How significant is it to have a sitting president suing a news outlet over a story?
I have never found an example like this. There are lots of examples of President Trump threatening to sue news outlets, and there are some examples of him actually filing suit as a private citizen. But this is the first time that as a sitting president, he's actually going into a legal war with a media outlet. And of course, given the recent settlements by Paramount and Meta and ABC and other companies, there's a lot of speculation about what Rupert Murdoch will do in this case. There's a lot of questions about whether Trump is just trying to shake down down the Wall Street Journal or pressure the Journal in some other ways. So we will see over time if this is a genuine, legitimate lawsuit with a real chance of winning, or if it's more of a PR stunt. Because having covered Trump for years, I know that many of his lawsuits are in part publicity stunts in order to get attention. In this particular case, this is a defamation suit, and the first thing you learn in a media law class is that the bar for a public figure to prove defamation is set very high. It's way over my head. It's high on purpose because public figures, are out there in the public domain. And there's lots written about them, and that's the way that the Supreme Court believes it should work, as the precedent was set back in the 1960s. So speaking with First Amendment lawyers overnight, I have a sense from them they believe this suit is pretty weak. As one of them said to me, quote, "Just screwing up even badly is not enough for defamation, and how could the President of the United States show $20 billion of damages?" There are some details about this lawsuit that seem absurd, but as we know, the president has been able to achieve settlements with other media companies. So we will see what Rupert Murdoch decides to do in this case. But as you mentioned, Danny, the Journal is saying it has a lot of confidence in this reporting. And let's be honest, they would not have published this bombshell story if they did not believe that they were on extremely solid legal ground.
Man, how many people will be posting and also reporting fake news? Something about they wouldn't report it if they don't have. Where's your proof? Show us your source, your proof, everything you have on it, bring it out. Well, now you're being sued. Here we go.
Other people also believe that this is not the last we've heard, perhaps, from the Wall Street Journal on this topic. Brian, in your latest piece, though, you wrote that the mere threat of this lawsuit, and then, of course, the follow-through, opened a new chapter in the operatic relationship between Trump and specifically Rupert Murdoch. Let me get your take on this. Is Rupert Murdoch one who is known to back down from a fight here?
Not only does Rupert Murdoch love to fight, he's even fighting his own children. He was in court for the last 2 years trying to change the terms of their billion-dollar trust. He even went to war with his own kids. So that tells you something about Rupert Murdoch and his willingness to not only fight it out, but to try to stick it out for as long as he can. Look, these two men, it's like Godzilla versus King Kong. They come apart, they come back together. After January 6th, Rupert Murdoch said of Donald Trump, "We're going to make him a non-person." Right? Rupert Murdoch wanted to excommunicate Trump from the party. But then, like so many others, Murdoch fell back in line. So this relationship has many layers. It's
Wait. Did he just say, like many others, he fell back in line? Of course, they all fall back in line because they have nothing to stand on. They all have nothing to stand on. They accuse this man of so many things, and guess what? They all fall back in line.
very complex. Ultimately, Trump benefits enormously from Murdoch's television empire, Fox News, but at the same time, the Wall Street Journal is renowned for really high quality reporting. And Trump doesn't want that. He does not want these stories that cast him in a negative light. I actually view his lawsuit as partly a message to other news outlets. Other news outlets have been pursuing reporting about Trump and Epstein, about that friendship from decades ago. So in some ways, by suing the Wall Street Journal, he's trying to have a chilling effect on reporting more broadly. He's trying to say to other news outlets, don't come after me, don't report on me, don't look into my past, or I'll try to ruin you. You know, that $20 billion damages claim kind of says it all. He's trying to send a message to other outlets not to look into this.
Yeah, true shot across the bow, it seems like. And this is not the first time Trump has gone after media outlets for their reporting on him. But this is the first time he has filed a libel lawsuit while in office, making him the first sitting president to sue a reporter or a media outlet for allegedly defaming him. CNN's Tom Foreman has more on this latest debacle.
I told Rupert Murdoch that he shouldn't print this fake story, but he did, and now I'm going to sue his ass off. President Trump is laying into the Wall Street Journal and its owner over the Epstein story, just weeks after ripping the paper's coverage in general.
Wall Street Journal has truly gone to hell.
Throughout his second run and return to the White House, Trump has said plenty about the media.
I watch these criminals back there, the press.
The news is really fake.
Real scum. And it has to stop. It has to be illegal.
And he's taken action. Trump sued ABC News, saying he was defamed in an interview about a past sexual abuse case. The network settled by promising $15 million to Trump's presidential foundation, but his attacks have not stopped.
ABC is the worst newscast of any newscast by far.
Trump filed a suit against CBS's 60 Minutes, saying it unfairly edited an interview with his Democratic challenger, Kamala Harris.
She gave an answer that was so bad that they changed it.
Many media and legal analysts said his claim was unfounded, but just weeks ago, CBS parent company Paramount settled too, coughing up $16 million. Trump filed a lawsuit against the Des Moines Register over an election poll that showed him doing poorly in a state he eventually won.
And in my opinion, it was fraud and it was election interference.
The paper disputed the claim. The matter is still in court. And there is more.
I'm Donald Trump, and I have more trash than all of you.
Trump, who was parodied long ago on Sesame Street, has torn funding away from public television, radio, and Voice of America. Press rooms at the White House and Pentagon have been rearranged, often to the advantage of pro-Trump outlets. He's battled the Associated Press over its widely respected style book, still referring to the Gulf of Mexico.
It's called the Gulf of America now.
And he's even savaged another property of media mogul Rupert Murdoch for recent polls showing public faith in Trump falling, posting, "It's why MAGA hates Fox News." Few of these cases have produced anything like a substantial apology for any behavior, and many of the companies seem to be settling it just so they don't go into long, drawn-out legal proceedings. Nonetheless, this has proven to be a winning political strategy for Donald Trump, even if he doesn't necessarily win in court. Tom Foreman, CNN, Washington.
Tom Foreman, thank you very much. All right, with me now is Jake Traylor, former great campaign reporter, now White House reporter with Politico. Jake, good to see you this morning. Here's the interesting element that came at the latter part of this week, though, is there was this Wall Street Journal story, right? And Steve Bannon told CNN that the story really was able to put President Trump on offense when it comes to the larger Epstein saga. So I guess my question for you is, his view is that this Wall Street Journal story is uniting some of these fractured parts of the party. But what do you think? Can unity last if there is not something of substance released by the government?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And it is odd, right, to assume that this, what the White House would call salacious Wall Street Journal article, would somehow unite the MAGA base. Like, why would what the White House is calling a defamatory story actually be helpful? The reason is because the uniqueness of the situation here is that we are seeing this MAGA rift really be created. What Donald Trump has done for literally a decade now is go after the press and has really been able to unite his MAGA base around the fact that fake news, ABC or CBS or CNN or now the Wall Street Journal, this is something that is familiar territory for Donald Trump and the White House. I was sitting at the White House yesterday in the office with a couple of White House officials who were really saying exactly what you said about going on offense now. They said this is what Donald Trump actually does best. And some of those names I mentioned a few moments ago, some of Trump's staunchest allies that were initially critical of the transparency around the Epstein files immediately jumped to his defense on social media, saying that this was defamatory, saying the Wall Street Journal had gone too far, calling it fake news. So for Donald Trump and for the White House, this is familiar territory. I've had multiple people at the White House tell me they're actually thankful for the timing of this Wall Street Journal piece because truly, regardless of the legitimacy of it, they're able to do what they do best. Donald Trump's going to file a $10 billion lawsuit against them. MAGA allies are going to come to the rescue, uniting again against this piece. Again, I think what ultimately determines the future here is how much content is released by this judge in New York, and is it going to be enough to satiate and satisfy some of these MAGA critics who have decried for more transparency in this case?
Yeah, I think those are all fair questions, but I think that, the initial DOJ memo that came out on July 7th, right? It's been 2 weeks since then, and we've still been talking about this, and it does not seem like this story is calming down anytime soon. Jake Traylor, thank you so much for your time this morning.
asking a judge to release grand jury testimony in the Jeffrey Epstein case. This comes after members of Trump's base staged a mutiny over his attorney general's failure to release the so-called Epstein files. The move may temporarily quiet some of the MAGA uproar, but it's unclear what the grand jury transcript could actually reveal. It's not a complete record of the investigation, just enough to get an indictment. And the judge has to agree to release it, which could take time, potentially a long time. The DOJ is making the request as Trump filed a defamation suit against his old friend Rupert Murdoch. Trump is asking for at least $10 billion in damages against a guy that Trump spent years praising.
My very good friend, Rupert Murdoch. There's only one Rupert.
I even got a call from Rupert Murdoch, who I have a lot of respect for. The legendary Rupert Murdoch.
Trump taking this action after the Murdoch-owned Wall Street Journal published a letter to Jeffrey Epstein bearing Donald Trump's name, containing a drawing of a woman's body with breasts and a Donald signature in the place of pubic hair. The message reads in part, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Trump claims the letter is fake, saying in part, quote, "I don't draw pictures," although he did draw pictures that were auctioned off during his first term in office. Trump's closest allies, though, are coming to his defense. His vice president, who has been curiously silent on the Epstein saga after previously calling for the release of documents, posted on social media, quote, "Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump?" To be clear, he is talking about this Donald Trump.
Grab him by the I could do anything.
Evan Perez is out front in Washington. Evan, what does Attorney General Pam Bondi?
Oh man, CNN. They never disappoint. They never disappoint. Take us all the way back. We love it.
Say in this new filing asking to release testimony in the Epstein case?
Well, Brianna, they're citing the public interest for asking a judge in Manhattan to release the testimony that was gathered as part of this investigation, these charges in 2019 against Jeffrey Epstein, sex trafficking and other charges, that is before he committed suicide in prison. This was a filing, it was just 4 pages that was filed with the signature of the Attorney General Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General. I'll read you just a part of what it says. It says, "The public interest in the Epstein matter has remained. Given this long-standing and legitimate interest, the government now moves to unseal grand jury transcripts associated with Epstein." And it also goes on to cite Brianna, another case in Florida, in the state of Florida. If you remember, he was prosecuted, or he got a plea deal in that case in the state of Florida. And in that case, the judge released some of the grand jury testimony there and said that the Epstein case, the facts around the Epstein case, tell a tale of national disgrace. Now, that is what the Justice Department cites as part of the reason why this information should be made public. We should note that traditionally grand jury secrecy governs all of this. It's not usually released, but judges are known to do so in the case of public interest. And this is something, of course, that's going to take some time, because judges typically want to also get the input of any victims, anybody who has been named in that testimony, whose privacy needs to be protected under federal law.
And Evan, also breaking tonight, Trump filing a lawsuit against the owner of the Wall Street Journal after the Journal's story about a letter that is signed by Donald to Epstein. What can you tell us about that suit?
Well, the president is now filing this lawsuit in the Southern District of Florida, in Miami, and it is citing both libel and slander as part of the reason for this action. And he's requesting, Brianna, $10 billion in damage plus additional punitive damages. He goes through, the lawsuit goes through about 20 pages citing the Wall Street Journal not only publishing this information, despite the president talking to them and telling them that it was not his signature, it's not his message that was included in those letters, and also notes the wide circulation of this article in the Wall Street Journal. It is a lawsuit against Dow Jones and Company, against News Corporation, against the reporters who wrote that article, and against Rupert Murdoch himself. So we'll see whether this goes forward. You remember, of course, yesterday the president posted on social media that he can't wait for Rupert Murdoch to be deposed in that case. Of course, as you know, in a civil lawsuit like this, the president himself will open himself up to some of that treatment in court, because his association with Epstein will become part of that case as well.
Yeah. Evan Perez, thank you so much for that great reporting. And out front now, Ryan Goodman, our out front legal analyst. We have former Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson, and also Barry Levine, author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Ryan, DOJ just asking a federal judge to make this public, this grand jury testimony in the Epstein case. When, and if this judge releases this, will the public learn anything potentially useful?
So it's first an uphill battle to get a judge to release grand jury materials, especially because this doesn't really fit any of the statutory or regulatory reasons that a court would do that. The court would have to find that it has inherent powers. Very unusual. And then at the end of the day, I don't think it's the material that the public really wants. The public wants to know what other individuals were involved in sexual abuse of minors. It's probably not in these grand jury materials. The grand jury indictments, in fact, are very limited to Maxwell and Epstein's abuse of minors and do not mention other individuals. So there's every likelihood with those narrow indictments, they weren't even presented with that. I think the real material that the public wants is in the DOJ's offices. It's not what was presented to the grand jury.
Yeah, I see Gretchen and Barry, both of you nodding to that. So Barry, talk about some of that other information that would not be contained in grand jury testimony.
Of course, Brianna, the transparency is really what all of us want here. And there's over 100,000 pages of documents, of FBI files. And of course, as he was just saying, the grand jury testimony is really limited to what the indictment said was the period of time from 2002 to 2005 when Epstein abused women in Palm Beach at his mansion there and in New York. We're looking for the complete transparency of all the files so we can learn about the interviews that had been conducted over the years by the FBI. We can learn the details of the autopsy report after Jeffrey Epstein's death behind bars. I'm particularly interested in his primary accuser, Virginia Giuffre. She had named six or seven prominent individuals who she said she had been trafficked to. Did the FBI try to corroborate any evidence related to these men? Are there interviews with any of these men? Are there interviews with any associates? There has to be a great deal of information in those files that could help us understand the 2 decades of sexual abuse of more than 1,000 victims.
Gretchen, whatever is released, I mean, you would expect a lot would be redacted, from victims' names to accusers' names to people who may have been accused, but nothing at this point is founded, right? I mean, you can't just put the names out there in these legal filings of people accused, but it's not a found. It's not, you know, if it's potentially baseless, there's a problem there. So how is the part of Donald Trump's base that really wants to see this information going to be placated by seeing this stuff?
Yeah, you know, I think that this raises a really important question about whether or not Trump putting out another potential fake news story is going to actually gin up the base again. You know, Trump doesn't strategize about many things, but we saw this happening earlier this week. We know the Wall Street Journal reached out to him on Tuesday. By Wednesday, he was saying it was a hoax and that this was all up to the Democrats. So he was already preparing his base to not believe the story that was going to come out in the Wall Street Journal. Then you add into it that the story really wasn't this massive expose that some people were talking about. And so now you've had some of his influencers, like Laura Loomer, who has a lot of power, saying that it's fake news. So I tend to believe that this will work to coalesce the MAGA base to come back behind Trump. the interesting twist here could be if the judge denies the release of this grand jury information, then the base is going to say, why is Donald Trump and why is Pam Bondi not releasing the millions of other documents that they could release right now? So I think there's still a lot to be seen about what's going to happen, but I think the Wall Street Journal story has probably coalesced the MAGA base behind Donald Trump.
All right, here we go.
The Justice Department asking a Manhattan court to make years-old grand jury testimony related to the Jeffrey Epstein case public. Paula Reed joins us again. And Paula, you've had a couple minutes now to go through this grand jury ask. Again, for everybody watching, this is just one small part of the Epstein documents writ large. There's a lot that the Trump folks are not asking to release. But on this small part, what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I wanted to see what argument they were going to make here to this judge. They're arguing that all of this is in the public interest. And I will say the Justice Department has not gotten a lot right on the messaging about this effort. But here it appears that the Attorney General Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, they're at least striking the right tone. Look, I don't know if this is going to work, but what they're writing here, they're saying, quote, public officials, lawmakers, pundits, and ordinary citizens remain deeply interested and concerned about the Epstein matter. They are noting the fact that in other places they have released portions of grand jury transcripts after concluding that the Epstein case qualifies as a matter of public concern. After all, Jeffrey Epstein, they say, is, quote, the most infamous pedophile in American history. The facts surrounding the Epstein case tell a tale of national disgrace. They argue the grand jury records are thus critical pieces of an important moment in our nation's history. They also argue that they understand there are privacy interests for victims and accusers, and they believe that a lot of the privacy concerns are diminished by the fact that Epstein is, of course, deceased, but they're willing to work with prosecutors to try to redact anything that could potentially impact victims. So the arguments here, they are well articulated. As you have said, though, this is just a tiny portion of the evidence that exists, and now the judge will likely want to allow those accusers, victims, their lawyers to weigh in on this possibility because grand jury material is by default confidential. And look, even if the judge decides that he will release some of this, there are still going to be questions about all the rest of the material that the Justice Department itself has the power to release and has not done so.
Right, and just to underline it again for folks, this is the grand jury testimony related to the prosecutions of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The questions and the reason why people want more accountability, Jeffrey Epstein's dead, Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison, is because they're questions of all the other people who may have been involved. They will not necessarily be mentioned in this because the prosecutors were not going after them.
That's exactly right. Highly unlikely that any of those other individuals are mentioned here. But the Attorney General, I really think it's important to note that she said last week that they reviewed this case and they don't believe that they have evidence to go after any third parties. But clearly, the public is not satisfied by that.
Meanwhile, there remain unresolved mysteries surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. Joining us now is award-winning Miami Herald investigative reporter Julie K. Brown. She exposed many horrific details of the Epstein sex trafficking story previously not brought to light. In fact, it was her 2018 story that brought this all back into the fore. She's the author of a great book on the subject that I highly recommend. It's called Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story. Came out in 2021. Julie, thanks for joining us again. There's still so many documents about Epstein that can be released outside of what Trump has asked Bondi to ask the judge to release in the grand jury report in the investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell. There's Epstein's autopsy report, financial transactions, FBI investigation, interview transcripts, how the FBI and the Justice Department handled the case back in 2008, how they handled the case in 2019. Why do you think none of this has been made public? And do you think there's going to be more pressure on the president to release such information? Let me just ask you even a more narrow question. What do you, as an investigative reporter, if you could get one tranche of this information that has been held back, delivered right to you for your next scoop, what would you want?
I'd want his financial records, to be honest with you, because I think that's the smoking gun here, Epstein's finances and how he made his money, who he got money from. I honestly think that the way to go with this would be to follow the money and look at his finances. But to go back a little bit just to this grand jury effort that he is mounting right now, I was able to speak to a couple of victims and lawyers that represent the victims, and they're very skeptical about what's happening here because they believe that there are certain words that are being used by the Justice Department and by the president, words like pertinent and credible, and that those to them are words that mean that they might not be getting everything, even with asking for the grand jury records, because they believe that those kinds of things are being used to siphon off records that maybe they don't consider are pertinent or credible. So they're very skeptical about all this. The other point I want to make about the grand jury records is as far as we know, and my sources in the case have said, is the Justice Department only focused on prosecuting first Epstein, and then when he died, then Maxwell. It was a very narrow investigation. They didn't go into anything beyond that. They didn't go into any other aspect of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. So most of the information that I know about is probably information that's already out there that we know that has been revealed during trial.
Jeffrey Epstein's former attorney, David Schoen, who also represented President Trump during his second impeachment trial, said this earlier today on CNN. Take a listen.
There is no Epstein client list, that I can tell you, that lists names of people who he purportedly took to an island with young girls or any place else with young women. I can assure you he would have used that to his advantage if there were. And I can assure you the accusers who were involved in those situations, if they were involved with fill in the blank, some famous person, they would have sued by now. Their lawyers are very aggressive and have made millions off of those lawsuits.
What's your response?
Oh, gosh. They did sue. They sued a lot of powerful men. We just don't know about it, because when you sue somebody that powerful, they settle. And so there were plenty of lawsuits that the victims filed against these powerful men. That's part of what their lawyers did, and it's been all settled all quietly, and we just don't know about it. So that's just simply not true.
Schoen says he met with Epstein 9 days before Epstein was found dead in his cell in 2019, and they discussed several topics, including Trump. Take a listen.
I specifically asked him about Donald Trump, and he was adamant in making clear that he had no bad information about Trump. Remember, Trump had thrown him out of his club years earlier. He wasn't happy about the idea of Trump being falsely accused, because Trump was one of the names being thrown around then.
Now, there's still a lot unknown about Trump and Epstein's.
Oh my God. You just heard from the lawyer. I'll go back again because most folks can't really listen. Listen to what he said.
I specifically asked him about Donald Trump, and he was adamant in making clear that he had no bad information about Trump. Remember, Trump had thrown him out of his club years earlier. He wasn't happy about the idea of Trump being falsely accused, because Trump was one of the names being thrown around then.
Now, there's still a lot unknown about Trump and Epstein's relationship, although nothing illegal has credibly been put forward. But according to the Wall Street Journal's new story, there's this letter bearing Trump's name with a drawing, a crude sketch of a naked woman that was part of this birthday book for Epstein in 2003. Again, that's 2 years before Epstein was ever accused of anything untoward with underage girls. The Wall Street Journal says the letter concludes with the line, quote, "Happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret." Again, President Trump vehemently denies this. He writing on Truth Social, quote, "These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures." He's also filing this libel suit against the Wall Street Journal and News Corp and Rupert Murdoch. On the drawings, just as a side note, here's a sketch Trump drew in 2005 of the New York City skyline. It was sold at an auction for nearly $30,000 in 2017. But regardless, what questions do you have when it comes to the president and Epstein and their relationship?
Well, let me just set the record straight. I know what he said that Epstein told him when he was in prison, but Epstein told his own brother, and his brother has been public about this, that he told him that if the public knew everything that he knew about Trump, they would have to cancel the election. And that's his brother's words, not mine. So there is something there. I'm not saying it means that the president did anything, illegal.
Man, please. Please, yo. Please, yo.
or he was involved with Epstein's operation at
So
all.
what are you saying?
But the story
You
that he
know
told
what?
his brother is different from the story that he told that lawyer, number one. The other point I wanted to make is, he also said there's no list. I agree that there probably isn't a list, but my understanding is that Epstein kept files, and he did keep files on people. I don't know whether the Justice Department got their hands on those files, but Epstein had some kind of records. It might not have been, and I don't believe it was, in a formal list that everybody wants to refer to. So I just think that Epstein told different people different things, and it's hard to know really,
So he told different people different things. So maybe he was lying to maybe everybody, or maybe not. Who knows? Okay. So you don't know, he don't know, we don't know. Who knows? His lawyer just said nothing about the commander in chief. And everybody knows it's a public information that he was thrown out of Trump's vicinity years ago. Years ago. Why would you throw somebody like that out of your vicinity if you are so close to him? If you are his best friend, why would you throw your best friend out of your vicinity? Man, just looking for something to say.
what's true and what's not true.
Once again, Julie Brown's book is called
All right, let's listen to the lawyer right here.
Joining me now, attorney David Schoen. He was hired to represent Jeffrey Epstein 9 days before Epstein died. He's also served as one of the President Trump's lawyers for his second impeachment. David, good to see you. You previously praised the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, for, as you called it, seeking transparency in the Epstein case. What is your verdict now that the DOJ says nothing to see here?
I don't really recall praising her for that, but I'm sure I did if you say I did. I think that the thing has been handled clumsily, quite frankly. I think that they jumped the gun. I think they spoke before they knew what they had. I think there's a certain level of hypocrisy from Congressman Khanna's position now. Where was he during the last 4 years? The Biden administration, we know, for sure that they had all of the same records. Remember, Ms. Maxwell was prosecuted by Mr. Comey's daughter and others. They've had access. A lot of people have had access to all of the papers related to Jeffrey Epstein. But I think it was handled clumsily. I don't believe there's a client list. I don't believe Jeffrey Epstein planned to blackmail anyone. I don't believe Jeffrey Epstein was in the employ of the Mossad or any other intelligence agency or any of these crazy Tucker Carlson theories that are going around.
Well, you say that you asked Epstein, frankly, if he had any dirt on President Trump. What did he tell you?
He said absolutely not. It was an important issue to him. This was before I knew President Trump at all, of course. This is 2019. I don't suggest that our conversation was limited just to that.
Sure.
But this was at a time in which it would have behooved Mr. Epstein to give up every wealthy and famous person that he knew in his own defense. And so specifically, I asked him about Donald Trump because, they had been publicly associated in the past, and Trump threw him out of his club years earlier. He said absolutely not, and it was important to him that people not cast aspersions on Donald Trump and others who we spoke about by wrongly associating him with any of his activities. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein ran with a lot of wealthy and famous people whose names, everybody knows. Mm-hmm. The fact that they might appear in an address book doesn't mean that they did anything nefarious with him. He had a photo array, for example, at his home with some of these rich and famous people with different stories for each photo, which I very much enjoyed hearing, quite frankly. For example, a picture of Bill Gates with a dollar bill. I asked, what's that all about? He said he made a bet with Bill Gates. What was he going to bet Bill Gates? So he bet him $1 and he won. Those kinds of things. But that doesn't mean that any of them had anything to do with women. I would say one last thing I want to say about this, this call for a special prosecutor and so on. There is a cottage industry of lawyers representing victims against Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein estate. You can be sure that if any of these famous people who haven't been sued already were with these young women, the young women would be able to identify them and the lawyers would have brought a lawsuit against them a long time ago. So if what people are waiting for is some smoking gun that someone famous, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and so on, was with these young women, I don't think there's any such list, and he never intended any blackmail.
Well, let me ask you, if everything you say is true and you've laid it out quite precisely, Why is none of this believed by the supporters who say, I don't trust the government, I don't trust DOJ, I think there's something there, and those who are elite are getting away with something else?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's because they were told, we're going to release the entire file, and there's such and such and such and such. I think that it hadn't been reviewed.
But
quite
wait,
frankly.
David, I don't want to, wait, hold on. But when you heard statements like Pam Bondi, for example, saying, I'm reviewing a client list on my desk or otherwise, you heard people talking about client lists and beyond. What did you think? Did you think that there was some reference that you had not heard of, or that it was all make-believe?
I didn't think there was a client list. I think what she meant was that she had a file on her desk that she was reviewing. I think their position now is they reviewed the file. There's no smoking gun about blackmail and so on. They also came to the conclusion that he committed suicide. I don't happen to believe that.
Why?
I can't prove it, and they can't prove it. I don't believe it for two reasons. Anecdotally, as I say, I met with him 9 days before. I know that during the course of that week, he was giving instructions right up until Friday based on the defense that we had talked about. He gave me another assignment that was forward-looking. But more importantly, Michael Baden, who to me is the top forensic medical examiner in the world, went through an independent medical examination with him just after he died with the assistant New York City medical examiner. And Michael Baden said that medical examiner couldn't come to a conclusion. And he, Michael Baden, has never in the tens of thousands of autopsies he's done seen injuries like Jeffrey Epstein had consistent with suicide. I also have had calls from people who had jail cells nearby. I've seen the layout of the jail cell, that sort of thing. I'm also surprised the Justice Department never interviewed me, who had seen him earlier, or other people. Anyway, it's my belief, but I can't prove it, and I don't have a conspiracy theory on who killed him.
Well, a DOJ Inspector General report did cite a combination of negligence and misconduct and jail staff failures that contributed to an environment that led to Epstein's death. But it states the New York medical examiner determined that Epstein died from suicide. That DOJ IG report adds the FBI determined Epstein's death was not the result of a criminal act. So I'll see what they might respond to what you've said as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Laura.
I want to talk more. Nice to see you too. I want to talk more about this with Scott Jennings, who is a CNN senior political commentator and also host of the Scott Jennings Show on Salem Radio, and Alencia Johnson, former senior advisor to the Biden 2020 campaign. All right, you heard the way that he laid out just now, and of course he has said all the things that I'm sure the DOJ would like people to believe, but it's not sticking for whatever reason. Why is this the political hill that so many are willing to die on? Why is it that there are so many people who say, nope, I don't believe it, I don't trust it?
Well, it was taken as an article of faith for many years that
what was
that that the idea that there's information that we're not seeing as the general public, and people said that, bought into it, and so Donald Trump wins the election. He appoints Pam Bondi, he appoints Dan Bongino, he appoints Kash Patel. These are all people that this same audience has confidence in.
Mm-hmm.
We trust their judgment, and I think it's just hard sometimes to believe something for a long time and then be told, you know what we believed is not the case. I think.
Who does that hurt, though? If that's the changing view, if the idea is, I don't trust what I've heard right now, does that harm Trump and the Republican Party? Does it harm Trump in particular?
Look, I don't know. I mean, there are certainly people that have legitimate questions about what happened. I mean, I've heard now two lawyers, both your guest tonight and Arthur Aidala, who I was on with Friday night, both raise questions about whether they believe he even committed suicide. So you can see there are actually, in the know people who are still raising legitimate questions about this case. So you can see why the general public would also have those questions. At the same time, if you vote for Donald Trump and you have trust in his judgment and the people he's appointed, at some point you have to trust their judgment. I mean, you put them in charge of this. And I think what Doug said is important to know. The Biden people had this stuff. If there was something incriminating about Trump, it would have come out. And also now the Trump people have this stuff. And if there was something incriminating about, Bill Gates or Bill Clinton, it would certainly have come out. And so I guess at some juncture, if you trust the people that you voted for, you trust the people that you voted for.
Well, let me ask you, I want to play for you as well some of what the supporters this weekend were saying during the Turning Point USA conference. They told CNN this about the Epstein file. Listen to this, Alencia.
I think they're going to maybe give us pieces and maybe not the whole thing and think that that's going to suffice. And I don't think people are going to be quiet about it until they really do it. But who knows if we'll ever know the true story.
Well, I think that if they don't release the Epstein files, whatever J.D. Vance says then is irrelevant, because it's like everybody's going to take it as like a lie because of what Donald Trump did. But I think J.D. Vance wants these files released as well.
And this is the first topic
that all of us as Americans, not as Democrats, not as liberals, not as Republicans, are actually lining together and saying we all want the Epstein files. And I said, come on, Donald, give us those files.
Well, Matt, you hear what they're saying, Alencia. Obviously, there's an issue about the trust, about transparency, and about how this might impact the ability to set things straight. You also heard from the daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who was saying that, suggesting there might be some need to have more transparency. Is the political pressure working to Democrats' advantage?
I think that's what you see Democrats trying to use, right? It's this conversation around trust. The Trump campaign made a really big deal about the Epstein files. J.D. Vance was talking about this on the campaign trail. Pam Bondi was talking about this. They had people walking out of the White House with these binders talking about the Epstein files. And so they were stoking their base around this conversation, around this, big gotcha moment. We're going to show you this list and show you what's in these files. And then all of a sudden did a bait and switch. And Democrats are using this as a moment to say you actually can't trust them to do the thing that they said that they were going to do. And I think...
Does it risk being backfired on them, though, in the sense, to his point, and I've heard others say this very notion, Alencia, that, well, Democrats had it before. Some people have accused Democrats of essentially sort of dangling something as a setup for Republicans or those who are believing this. What do you say?
Look, I actually don't think Democrats are making this as big of a central issue. I think it's one of the big pieces of a broader puzzle, right, about the trust with the Trump campaign. This is not the central issue for Democrats, but it is just a piece of this puzzle as we're going into some special elections, our Virginia gubernatorial race, all of these things to talk about. You can't trust Donald Trump and the Republican Party to do what they say they're going to do. And here's another example of that. Not the central example, but another example.
Big of a blowback is there right now in MAGA world specifically?
It's pretty big, I have to be honest. It's just a red line that it crosses for many people. Jeffrey Epstein is literally the most well-known convicted pedophile in modern day history. This is something that's been talked about by many people serving in the administration, myself and many others on the right and the left, of there needing to be transparency of the rich and powerful elites that were in his circle while he was just one of the worst serial abusers of young women. It has been a very serious situation for the administration, and many people are speaking out online. You've seen it. You saw it at Turning Point Student Action Summit this weekend. And a lot of people in MAGA, they really want to know more information about the people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And is there a blackmail list? And are there foreign countries' governments involved? And there's nothing wrong with people continuing to ask that.
For the first time in his political life, Donald Trump is losing control of the message. The MAGA base is demanding answers after Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that Jeffrey Epstein did not have a client list. At the time of his death, Epstein faced charges over the sex trafficking of underage girls. Bondi's announcement is a 180 from the theories Trump and his allies have promoted for years. For example, Dan Bongino.
A lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed,
I think. So? Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go, ever.
Okay, well, now he's deputy director at the FBI, and Bongino is talking about quitting over handling of the Epstein case. The group chat is back. Jasmine, one of the things that struck me about watching this play out online in social media posts is people saying someone should be fired. This person needs to go, that person needs to go. Is it Bondi? Is it Bongino? Where's Kash Patel? What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, I think people have to look back to Signalgate and how long it took President Biden to fire Mike Waltz, and yet he's still
President Trump, yeah.
President Trump to fire Mike Waltz, and yet he is still now heading for a confirmation vote to be the UN ambassador, right? President Trump does not want to fire his cabinet. And in fact, he really actually likes Pam Bondi. They spend a lot of time together. They have a lot of FaceTime, and they've had for years. He also says that he likes Dan Bongino. Of course, Dan Bongino showed up to work yesterday, a source told me, really something that the administration hopes is kind of the first step for this to be, just a bridge over troubled water, something kind of in the distance, and that the base gets over it. Of course, I talked to one MAGA influencer who basically said the base, after this, couple of days, including President Trump's Truth Social, was unmoved, that they're not moving on. And so they're kind
even
of
as he says over and over again. Is anyone
get
still
over it, that they're
talking about
unmoved.
this? And
so
the
they're
answer
kind of
is
between
yes.
a rock and a hard place. But I think that people have to recognize that Donald Trump does not want to give anybody a scalp, and he actually really likes Pam Bondi. And so I don't necessarily see him firing her, at least in the
meantime,
future.
Democrats weighing in on this. Here's House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
The American people deserve to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as it relates to this whole sordid Jeffrey Epstein matter. Democrats didn't put the Jeffrey Epstein thing into the public domain. This was a conspiracy that Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and these MAGA extremists have been fanning the flames of for the last several years. And now the chickens are coming home to roost.
Look, I like it. I like it a lot.
Did you just do the chin? I want to know what you're going to say.
Yeah. What I'm going to say is that, look, there's very few issues that Democrats can weigh into on conspiracy stuff that will get MAGA to even think Democrats got half a brain, but this is one of them. One thing that's lost, and Democrats, listen to me, the way we should be talking about this and the reason that these files should be made public is because we never talk about the victims and the folks who've lived through, the women who've lived through what they had to live through with this whole thing. Like we talk about him, we talk about Trump, we talk about a Democrat, we talk about Clinton, whatever, but
In
we
fairness,
forget.
if you go down the rabbit hole, a lot of the people posting are like, what about these victims? They need justice.
sure.
They see that as part of their...
Democrats says this is how you should be talking about this.
Yeah.
Talk about the victim and say that's why we should see everything.
All right, I have one for you, too. You had your chin.
Yeah.
This one is Marjorie Taylor Greene demanding transparency on the case.
Why am I Marjorie Taylor Greene all day?
That it crosses for many people. Jeffrey Epstein is literally the most well-known convicted pedophile in modern day history, being convicted years ago for procuring a child for prostitution, as well as other charges. And this is something that's been talked about by many people serving in the administration, myself and many others on the right and the left, of there needing to be transparency.
If the whole point of outsiders becoming insiders, Chuck, but people becoming insiders is that they're going to make a difference. And what I hear in the way people talk about it is not only you not making a difference, you're becoming part of whatever machine I'm upset about. And like there's an undercurrent there that I wonder is hard to fight.
Absolutely, and I think that's on both sides of the aisle. I mean, you've got the extreme left and the extreme right, which all will come together. But this is one of those issues. They just don't trust the government. But she's right, and actually you're thinking just like Marjorie Taylor Greene in regards to the
victims. You're trying to get me fired from all my clients. Go ahead.
But I do think that there is a fundamental problem that the president has to deal with. You're right, he likes Pam Bondi, and she's taking the fall for this. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, what's really happening behind the scenes. The list coming out is not going to be good for Republicans or Democrats. I'm sure there's people on the list
Pam Bondi says there's no list.
Or the names.
Yes.
But Laura Trump said yesterday that she thinks that there's going to be more information coming out, and she's trying to, obviously, if she's coming out and saying the president's frustrated about this, they realize that something has to happen.
We do have new CNN reporting this morning. President Trump is urging those in his inner circle to let the furor surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case die down. It comes after a dramatic few days that put the president kind of at odds with some of his most ardent supporters, including inside his own administration. At one point yesterday, it was not even clear whether the FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino would show up to work again. That's after fallout with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the handling of the Epstein files. He did return to the office yesterday ultimately, but his future remains up in the air. Let's get right to CNN's Kevin Liptak at the White House. Where is this going, Kevin, and how does the White House feel about the direction?
Yeah, well, the hope and I think expectation inside this building and on the part of President Trump is that this will all eventually sputter out, that the president's entreaties to his supporters, to his words, put this to rest, will be followed, and that this controversy will follow the pattern of so many Trump controversies before it, and it essentially dissolve into the ether. And at least among one subset of his outraged base, which are the people who actually work for him, it does appear to be going in that direction. Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director, who threatened to quit over this last week and actually didn't show up to work on Friday, did wind up in the office yesterday. The president was infuriated by his ultimatum, we're told, and it did take some massaging on the part of allies of both of these men, including the vice president, J.D. Vance, to sort of get things back on track. So Bongino back on the job for now, although we should note he has said in the past he's not particularly fond of the job he's in, and it does appear as if he wants to maintain some credibility among his podcast audience, to whom he peddled a lot of these conspiracies about Jeffrey Epstein before he took this job. And at the end of the day, it is that question of credibility that really is at the center of all of this, both for Bongino and for President Trump. You know, Trump is someone who fueled all of these conspiracies as a candidate. Now, as president, he seems unwilling or unable to follow through and to give his supporters the answers that they're really looking for. We did hear from a top ally of the president, his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, who suggested we had not yet heard the final word on this matter. Listen to what she said.
There needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later.
So you hear her saying there that more will be coming out. That was not at all the gist of the memo from the Justice Department that started all of this, which essentially said case closed. And we've got no indications from the Justice Department or the White House that they do in fact plan to put more of all of this out. You also hear her say that she thinks the president understands all of this. What we've heard from a lot of Trump allies is that they're concerned that he does not in fact understand the gravity of all of this, and that his attempts to dismiss it are only making matters worse.
Pretty notable to hear from Lara Trump on this, saying that we will hear more eventually. Someone who theoretically has a little bit of a line to the Oval Office. All right, Kevin Liptak.
All right, here we go.
Terrible Optics could talk. They'd give an opening monologue on this one. CBS canceling Stephen Colbert and its late night franchise altogether, citing a money decision. But it is notable for its timing, given that just a couple of weeks ago, the company settled with Donald Trump over a bogus lawsuit, and just days after the late night host ripped that idea on air.
Now, I believe this kind of complicated financial settlement with a sitting government official has a technical name in legal circles. It's big fat bribe. Because this all comes as Paramount's owners are trying to get the Trump administration to approve the sale of our network to a new owner, Skydance.
And now senators are demanding answers about whether the cancellation was just political. So it's just the new reality for old TV and linear television, or is it a chilling episode of free speech being under attack in the Trump era?
It's B. And yeah, and it's really, it's not about Stephen Colbert, who is wonderful. Right. No one's precious, right? We could all be fired at any moment. It's about the bigger picture. It's about Donald Trump going out and saying, I've been beating the media, AKA the First Amendment. I've been beating them. He can say that credibly to his audience because CBS and ABC capitulated and paid him tribute. And we'll see who else continues to do that. So he gets this talking point that he's been beating us because they let him beat them. So it doesn't almost matter if this is political, financial. The perception is it's political. The perception is this was a bribe to condition a favorable environment for Skydance going forward. And that's really a shame.
Reinforced this in a Truth Social post saying, I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next. He even has less talent than Colbert. look, Trump is happy about this, but on the Skydance part of it, the reporting is that the likely incoming new owner of CBS was just in to see the FCC chairman this week, and
Shocking.
they also had they had to give a filing on this. Here's what it says that they discussed. We discussed Skydance's commitment to unbiased journalism and its embrace of diverse viewpoints, principles that will ensure CBS's editorial decision-making reflects the varied ideological perspectives of American viewers.
And this is crazy because what Trump is doing is running around bullying people when they hurt his feelings. And if you look at Stephen Colbert's show, he talks trash about everybody. And the idea that he's happy that Colbert's show got canceled because there's a merger he wants to happen is another example. Has there been another president that has spent more time litigating against media outlets?
No, of course not.
No.
But I mean, will we ever know if this is why?
Of course not. Of course not. She's right. But also, has there been any president who has had the lowest border crossing? Nope. Has there been any president who actually is renegotiating trade deals? Maybe not. Okay. So you can say so many things about Trump. However, he's like the first in so many areas. Okay.
Happen because of the parent company in the merger? No, but also yes. Because you know why? You don't kill your cash cow. I mean, TV is losing money across the networks, and that's the trend that we're going. But Stephen Colbert is number one and has been for a long time. Also, Stephen Colbert
show's losing $40 million a year.
Every show is losing money. It's still making them plenty of money in ad revenue every year. But you know, listen, I worked for Stephen for 6 years.
Yeah, I was going to say you
I know him really well.
Very well.
And he's beloved by everybody, and everybody who works in the Stabs family. But the thing that really put him on the map, really made him super famous, was speaking truth to power to the President of the United States at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2006. Every night at the Colbert Report, an audience member would ask him about that moment. He's always done that. He's always punched up at power, speaking truth to power. And wherever my camera is, I want this one. I want to tell Stephen, you should run for president, sir. Do it! Run. He's running.
Either that or launch a Netflix show or whatever, you know. I don't know. I mean, whatever is next, I mean, he will have an audience.
Right.
And
welcome to Substack, Steve.
Pete is also right in the sense that, I mean, there is a decline in linear television, period, right? Ad revenue is on the decline across the board. But relative to his peers and his competition, his show was doing actually quite well. So it's questionable, and the timing is questionable. But I will say that Skydance, or excuse me, Paramount says that they had to do it now because they've got contracts coming up. These are unionized crews, all of that stuff. Just to tell you what they're saying about.
Yeah, the timing is undoubtedly suspect, and CBS, as I understand it, wanted to wait to make this announcement. It was Stephen Colbert who preempted that because he was worried about leaks. So yeah, it looks bad, and perhaps that was his intent, that he wanted it to look bad to get some extra attention. But you can't just dismiss that the show is losing $40 million a year. It's the highest rated, but that doesn't equate to dollars.
Pete, that's not a good argument. It means it used to make more money. It's making less money. Doesn't mean you kill it.
Well, when you have a balance sheet, it does matter. All of TV it also matters that late night TV has been decimated.
Right.
The Late Late Show, which used to be on after Colbert,
his show
has been completely off the air for 2 years now, I think, when James Corden left. Before
you guys are making it about this one show, and it's not. Right. What ABC and CBS did when they paid ransom is they endangered the lives of every journalist everywhere, and they made it harder for all of us to do our jobs because the president is pointing at us, putting a target on our backs, and they helped him do that. And so it's always the case when you pay off a pirate, when you pay the ransom, the tribute, to navigate safely through the waters are never safe. No matter how much you pay, the waters are unsafe because there's pirates in those waters. And Donald Trump is a pirate, and he wants to maraud through the seas of the media landscape. He's doing it with our help, which is the worst part.
Let me play a little bit of how Stephen Colbert may have gotten on the wrong side of
Oh my goodness. This man's home was raided. Let me just refresh y'all memory real fast. Donald Trump, then the former president at the time, his home was raided publicly. Everybody saw it. It was on all primetime news. Okay. Nobody had nothing to say. Oh, he's a criminal. He's a criminal. Get him. And of course, Letitia James came out and said, if you vote for me, I will get you Donald Trump. Nobody said nothing. Everybody said, oh, yo, we're going to vote for you because we want you to get us Donald Trump. So many people on the left really ran for their position in government with the hopes and aims of promising their voters that we would get you Donald Trump. And it's still going on today. This man's life was almost taken away twice. The closest they got was in Pennsylvania. Nobody said anything. Some people even insinuated that he was all made up. That what happened in Pennsylvania, some people said that was all made up by Donald Trump. This man was going from from courtrooms to campaign grounds. From courtrooms to campaign grounds. Nobody said anything then because it was what? He's a rich, spoiled man because his father gave him a lot of money. So he doesn't deserve normal life like every other American, or he doesn't deserve to live his life like every other American. So when it's Donald Trump, you guys go all the way in and say, we got to get him. We have to get him. But when it's somebody else, Donald Trump is going against this person. This Donald Trump is such a sorry loser. He's a this, is a that. People go after Donald Trump every day. He's been attacked every single day, but it's still the commander-in-chief. People still voted for him. Matter of fact, in case you forget, he is the first convicted president. That's how much they wanted to smear his name. This is how much they wanted to smear his name. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald J. Trump, the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States, is the first convicted felon president. Guess what the judge said? We're going to convict you, but we're going to convict you into the White House. What? What are you saying? You just said this man is good to go, but then you want to give him the tag, you want to give him the label of a convicted felon. Why did you have to do all that? Because they want to smear his name. But he is your commander-in-chief. He is the 45th and now the 47th president of the United States. So every time I see people talking about how bad Donald Trump is, okay, he's bad. What else do you have? What else do you have? Nothing. Just get Donald Trump. That's all you run on. Get him, get him, get him. Yet this guy is getting the job done. This man is getting the job done. And guess what? People are going to say, well, Genesis, you're a sellout. Yes. What else do you have to say? Like, what else do you guys have to say?
Donald Trump, because as you said, he says it like he feels it.
Yes. Always.
Trump reportedly said, why are we having all these people from whole countries come here?
Wow. Sir, they're not whole countries. For one, Donald Trump isn't their president.
Trump continued to insist America's going to do great with this pandemic as long as you don't count half of America. This is unspeakably monstrous, especially for the president of the United States. A lot of voters didn't want to believe everything that was obvious to so many of us, that Donald Trump is a fascist. Hey, remember when Donald Trump said he was
Well, so Donald Trump is a fascist, according to this guy, but Joe Biden is the great hope, right? Kamala Harris is the great hope. That's the thing that I don't get. You would never hear me say Joe Biden is a bad person or is a communist, is it this? I would never say that. You would never hear me say Kamala Harris is a communist. She's a... I don't have time for that. Vote for whoever you want to vote for. But these guys, they have a platform way, way, way huge, larger than I got. And they say things like Donald Trump is a fascist. So they're allowed to say stuff like this, and I'm not allowed to sue? I don't think so.
Be a dictator only on day one? Well, evidently, his first act as dictator was declaring that day one never ends.
Now, I get, Congresswoman, that on Capitol Hill, there are definitely a lot of Democrats who would like to do something about this, but is there really anything that can be done?
It's hard to do something when you're in the minority and you don't have the majority of votes. In the House, the number is 218. There are 212 of us, and we don't have the majority.
Man, you guys, decide for yourself. Decide for yourself, okay? Do not let any news outlet think for you. So today we did Donald Trump with the Genius Act bill, which is for cryptocurrency. Anybody who is interested in the crypto world would be interested in the Genius Act bill. And then we saw the liberal news, which is CNN, of course. So everybody here saw that I showed you guys CNN for what? Over 1 hour, 30 minutes. Okay. So when we do come back, we're going to check out Fox for like 2 hours. So I don't want anybody crying in the chat. So you only showing Fox. You just saw CNN, okay? Now, with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams and believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest, okay? God is the greatest. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Everybody tuned in right now. Double tap your screen twice. 1, 2. Double tap your screen twice to give this video a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. And if you want to become a member of the channel, it is $4.99. Join the channel memberships. It is awesome. We have the greatest chat. We do not block anybody, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or whatever you are, independent, the Green Party, whatever party you are, we would never block you except you're, I guess, the worst of the worst. So it doesn't matter if you're a conservative, liberal, or I guess independent or progressive, you're welcome here at the Genesis Show. So you guys, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to the military personnel. Shout out to the veterans. Thank you for your service. God bless you guys. Shout out to the law enforcement officers. Shout out to ICE, baby. Yeah, man. God bless you guys for tuning in. Shout out to Terry, the bomber girl. God bless you for being here. Thank you. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. God bless you. What else, man? Life is hard, okay? Life is absolutely hard, but never ever give up. Never ever quit. God is your strength. I promise you that. God would never bring you into this world to be alone, to be lonely, to be dismayed, to be afraid, to be fearful. Do not live a fearful life. Go outside, make new friends, shake hands, talk to people, okay? Smile. Go outside, man. Go outside, okay? There are people right now in the hospital fighting for their lives. There are people right now in the hospital fighting for their lives. So you got the energy, you got the air in your lungs, you got the strength to walk, to move your body, to eat. Some people cannot even eat right now. They're in the hospital taking food through their nose or their mouth. So, man, be grateful for life. Smile. It's not Republicans or Democrat first. It is America first. All right. It is America first. All right. God is the greatest, man. With that being said, it is your boy, Genesis, and you are tuned into the Genesis Show. Also, I got to say this, man. Shout out to the fathers. Shout out to the fathers. God bless you for all that you do. Thank you for your hard work. I get it. You have to work hard. You got to do the extra shift. You got to travel. You got to drive the truck. You got to do your plumbing job. Whatever job that you do, shout out to the fathers. Also, I got to implore the fathers, please spend time with your kids, because when the father does spend time with the kid, it is different. It is different because fathers are so important. Fathers are so important. So, fathers, take charge. Spend some time with your kids. The kids love it when the fathers spend time with them. I'm telling y'all, kids love it. And shout out to the mothers as well, man. Shout out to the mothers. Mothers have been doing great jobs since the beginning of time. So shout out to the mothers, the queens out there. God bless you. Now, enjoy your day. Go out, have a good time. I'm about to take my daughter to the museum. I'm about to take my beautiful 5-year-old girl to the museum. So we're gonna check out the museum. It's like a science museum. We're gonna check that out, and we're gonna be back in like 4 hours. Have a good time, and then I will be back here. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Love your neighbors. Love your country, and enjoy yourself. It is Saturday. Go outside. Have a good time. Good morning. It is still 11:57 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 19th of July, 2025. It is your boy Genesis. God bless you. God bless America. You are tuned into the Genesis Show.